He just goes, I don't have people on stage with me who do things that I wouldn't like. And I was like, oh, that is mind-blowing, because what that means is you made the decision before you hired me that you liked what I do, you liked what I bring to the table. And so by telling me that, it's a really smart way to say you now have to have the confidence to do that.
That's Tawny Newsome, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Kara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast, where I invite my favorite humans, the awesome, the up to something, and the extraordinary to come and share their story. I hope that you'll be left entertained, inspired, and moved to take action towards living your most powerful life. I am so excited for you to get to know Tawny Newsome. She's an actor. You've seen her as a helicopter pilot on Space Force, as well as voicing Beckett Mariner on Star Trek Lower Decks. She's a musician with a new album that's just released, and a podcaster, co-host of Yo, Is This Racist? And she's an all-around badass lady. On this episode, we discuss how to create the life you want with everything included, how to make things from the ground up, and we discuss how you should be confident along the way. All that and so much more coming up, but first. Yogazama 200-hour teacher training is the introductory program offered by the Lispy School. It's a psychotherapeutic yoga teacher program that takes traditional yoga and seeps it in scientific tea. Yoga plus brain science equals a whole new level of access to mental health and human optimization. While you're learning the yoga poses, breathing techniques, Ayurveda, meditation, and mantras of a traditional yoga teacher training, you'll also be learning the brain science, neurobiology, and psychology behind why it works and how you can bioengineer a practice or protocol to transform stress, anxiety, sadness, and more. In the same way you would use an essential oil or go for a run or take a hot bath to change your emotional state, in this course, you will learn scientifically proven mind-body techniques to level up yourself or your clients. I just completed my Yogazama 200 certification, and I thought this class would be for my own personal development. And yet, as a business coach, I've used something I've learned every week with my clients. Imagine what you could do with this training. I cannot recommend this program enough. Sign up now to save your space in the 2021 programs and to qualify for 20% off early bird discount pricing. Special bonus, I'll be teaching the business lesson so you'll know how to create either a new business or level up your existing business with your new skills. Visit thelispyschool.com, Lispy, and sign up today. Spots are limited. I'll also include a link in the show notes within this episode. Well, welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Thanks so much.
I'm really excited you're here. You have been on our wish list since we started, I think. Jordan is, of course, such a fan of getting to work with you when she worked on Yo, Is This Racist with you. And she was like, okay, on our list, we need to have Tawny. She's so badass. And I was like, yes, please.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, Jordan's on my list of people I wish I could have stolen away from the network when my podcast left. I wish I could have just dragged her with me, but we probably can't pay her as well as her real job can. So it's good that she's where she is, but we miss her.
Yes, there's probably a whole network of people who are like, how do we keep Jordan? Right? Let's just, yeah. I'm really proud that I have such a badass sister as well.
Yeah.
Well, as we begin, would you please introduce yourself and tell people what you are up to?
Yeah, I'm Tawny Newsome. I'm an actor, musician, podcaster. That's pretty much it these days.
When I was telling everyone who I was recording with today, I was like, and you guys are going to be so excited. And my boyfriend's obsessed with the Space Force. I'm like, it's the helicopter pilot. He was like, what? Can I be in the podcast? I'm like, no, you can't.
Oh, man, that was, you really dangled the carrot for him and then just snatched it away.
I did. I'm like, you'll have to listen when it comes out. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, tell him thanks. Thanks for watching.
Of course. I have to say that you are, and I've told this to Jordan, Knowing that you were going to be in the show from Jordan's, insider information when she's like, it's coming out, get ready, get ready. You are by far one of our favorite characters on the show. And I'm trying to be like, am I biased because I was expecting it to be awesome? Or is it just awesome? And I think it's just great. It's such a good character.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she was well written, and then the writers let us have a lot of say. Like me and Jimmy O Yang, who plays Dr. Chan. We have a little storyline together, and so the writers were really welcoming about like letting us pitch ideas and pitching dialogue. I mean, there was a scene that we straight up wrote, not because the writers, of course, can write whatever they want, but they so graciously they'd written a scene. They asked what we thought about it, and we were kind of like, oh, maybe it should be like this. And Greg Daniels, our showrunner, was just like, just rewrite it, and it's a quick little scene in episode 10, but it felt really good to get to, contribute in that way. So I think the character really feels like a product of all that collaboration.
Mm-hmm. And, as a powerful ladies person, I think collaboration comes up so often because so many of us know like we can't do anything by ourselves. I mean, we're capable, but it's so much better when we're doing it in collaboration. How has collaboration spilled over into all your other projects?
I think it's the bedrock of everything I do. I'm kind of I think when I was a kid, my dad would call me a benevolent centrist, which meant that I was doing what I wanted first and foremost, but I also wanted to extend that policy to those around me. So how I think that was also a nice way of saying you're a selfish only child, but you're kind about it. And so I think how that's manifested itself in my professional life is that I always want to strike out on my own or make my own thing or build my own things from the ground up wherever possible. But I'm always trying to bring, co-conspirators in with me to do that. So yeah, it's an interesting juxtaposition of I don't want to be alone, but I want to be independent with others, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I feel like I'm very similar in that I love making things, but my love language is to make things together. So like who wants to be on the team? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I very much work best in team situations as opposed to boss employee, probably because I don't deal with authority very well. And so then when I have had the opportunity for people to work in a capacity where they answer to me a little bit, I tend to want it to be more like a committee rather than a hierarchy because I don't know how to handle it.
Well, yeah, and then you're just respecting everyone's brains a bit more too, I imagine. Mm-hmm.
Trying to, just surround yourself with people who are as smart as and smarter than you. And then, you never have to, you never have to repeat yourself.
Would the benevolent centrist version of you at 8 years old have imagined the life that you have today?
In a way, yes, because I was always pretty focused on, performing, and I knew that it would be tough. I guess I didn't know necessarily that TV was in my future. I was pretty focused on theater. I did a lot of I sang a lot. I tried to do a lot of classical singing. I know Jordan has a long background in that. I gave up though. Jordan stuck with it a lot longer than I did. I was like, woof, I cannot handle this. So the fact that it's TV is different. And I didn't know what a podcast was at 8, probably because they didn't exist yet. So I don't think I would have known that I was going to do that either.
Speaking of that, how did you guys start Yo, Is This Racist?
Andrew, my co-host, Andrew T, he actually started it. He was working at Comedy Central, and he was like, and this was back in, I don't know what year, but it was a while ago. And he was the only person of color who worked in that particular division. And so, he had pleasant coworkers, but they would come to him and ask him like racially sensitive questions all the time because he was the only one in the office. And he was kind of like, jokingly like, I can't be the brownest person basically. So he created a Tumblr and it became this really popular blog of the same name, Yo, Is This Racist, where people would send in things. And, he really like tackled it as a blog for a long time and then pitched it as a podcast that he used to host by himself. And then about 2 years ago, basically about the same time. I feel like Jordan and I came on at the same time. I came on as co-host, and yeah, we've just been trying to find ways to keep it fresh, even though it's, it's the same. It's about the same 5 questions over and over, just in different arrangements.
Does it surprise you anymore what people say, or are you just like, of course, that they're going to ask that?
Every now and then. There's an episode a few weeks back, well, depending on when this airs, but not that long ago. The episode is called Dildo of Color. And that phrase, I did not create that phrase. I just want to go on record. The anonymous caller referenced, with what sounded like all seriousness, they referenced lifelike dildos in human shades. And they said the phrase, I want to buy a dildo of color. And I still don't think we've recovered. I'm not usually shocked, but that one knocked me back.
I think that was the first episode where I really got to talk. And it was me chiming in about, like, there are different colors of toys.
Jordan was like, may I just jump in? Because I have something burning I need to talk about.
Speaking of like being empowered with things that you are just normal, when you think of the words powerful and ladies separately and together, what do they mean to you, and what does it represent for you in your life?
I mean, yeah, the word powerful has always been around. It's a comfortable word. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's funny because separately I think of the word powerful as like, oh, great. And I think of the word ladies as like, ooh, like I don't want to be a lady. Like that sounds like an older person, which is probably just my diseased Hollywood brain being like, stay young forever. But I suppose together it creates a new meaning of, that it casts a color onto the power, right? Yeah, like the type of power being a lady power. I think I have a hard time with the word lady.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's like, I'm not ready to be that mature, probably.
It's one of the most controversial questions I think I asked during the podcast, because power, most people they have something about it that they relate to, but ladies can be really dividing, because for some people it's like means bad haircuts and horrible pantsuits, and for other people it means like really posh, snobby old ladies drinking tea.
Yeah.
Other people love it. Like it's been the most talked about thing. Because it just it shows up differently.
Where else it makes my mind go is there, I feel like this was a very Chicago thing, where I was in Chicago for a long time doing comedy, and mostly the women in the comedy community, I should say mostly the comedy community in general, regardless of gender, was very supportive, but it was also competitive. And a lot of the women that I would interact with, very supportive, but sometimes it was a small world, but you wouldn't always exactly know everyone's name, but you knew everyone by sight because you saw their show last week where they played 50 characters. So there was a lot of times where people would just look at you and go, "Hey, lady." And everyone knew, I feel like everyone knew it's because you didn't know their name. So maybe for me, it's like uh-oh. Yeah, it causes me to go, uh-oh, I don't know that woman's name. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm hoping that is not what's happening for guests on this show, right?
Yeah, no, everyone's name on this show, thankfully. And our names are in the Zoom thing. So if you do forget,
thank goodness. Yes. It's very helpful. And pro tip, now you can add your handle in there too. If you're doing a speaking engagement, that way people can just follow you right away. So when I have this for work, I have that on there.
I did see that I saw that people were adding pronouns in there. Okay, I got to play around with my Zoom settings. Thanks for the tip.
You're welcome. When in your life have you felt the most powerful or realized how powerful you actually are?
Probably when I don't know. I feel like I do a lot of things where like I kind of know I'm right, and so I'm sort of I don't know, pontificating about things or, if we're dealing with stuff with the podcast, if I'm on a call or something talking about it, I feel very sure of myself.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't always mean I feel powerful. It just means I feel kind of self-righteous, and like I know what to do. And sometimes you're not always right in those instances, but I have felt powerful when I ask questions that I know. When you ask people a question, when people are fucking up, who you're working with or who you're working for, or who you're dealing with, and you ask questions that they don't have the answer to or that they have the wrong answer to. And there's just that like kind of stunned silence. I don't know why. That's so petty of me, but that's when I feel the most powerful because I'm like, I know that you're doing this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, I don't know. It doesn't always feel good, but it is a type of power.
Whenever I've had that experience, it goes like the feeling right after is just like utter frustration of like, how are you in this space?
Yeah. How do you have the same job or a better job than me? And I know how to do this better. That really makes me feel wild because a lot of times, especially as an actor, you're kind of just like a little chess piece moved around a lot. And so there's a lot of frustration of feeling like you know better or you would do better. And it doesn't always mean you would because, you've spent most of your life doing this job. So you're not necessarily better at the other job just because you've seen it a lot. A lot of times we think we'd be better at directing when we're underestimating what goes into it. But no, there are those few times when I just know. I know because at a certain age, our life experience has built up so much that oftentimes we do know. And as women, we've been forced to kind of be quiet about it or to just act like we don't know so we don't make our male counterparts uncomfortable or overstep or be seen as bitchy or pushy. But a lot of times, especially by now, a lot of times we do know.
Yeah. It's I have so many examples of the corporate world of either being like female or younger or American and not whatever country I was working in, and just knowing right away that whatever I said was getting 1/5 the credit. And it always emboldened me to be like, oh, I cannot wait to show you who you are dealing with. And I think it's good, right? It leads to drive, but at the same time, it's like, can I be driven and not feel the need to like give an elbow as I'm like passing sometimes? Obviously, it's mostly to people who deserve it.
Yeah, the giving the elbow, a lot of times I have to question, I'm like, am I including these details in this email because everyone on the thread needs to see them to make the thing better? Or am I including these details to humiliate the person who I think is dumb for doing it wrong?
Yes.
And I gotta try it. I gotta try and stop doing the second thing. It's not productive.
With all that you have going on, I know that music is so important to you. You just released a new album, is my understanding. Is that correct? Okay. What does music mean to you today as it's evolved for you? And how does it mix in with all the other projects that you're doing? And how is it different for you?
Yeah. It's music has always been a safer space for me because it's not my primary career, frankly. Because music is much, much harder to eke out a living in, much harder to just remain stable in, to stay relevant, to stay motivated. It would be, my friends and my co-collaborators who do it full time, I just have nothing but respect and awe for because I kind of have I have a cushion of having another gig I can go do. So when I'm frustrated or blocked or can't sell a record, I can go audition for something. Doesn't mean I'll get it, but I try to keep enough balls juggling that I have something to bounce to. Music is really unforgiving, especially with the way that the streaming sites and, everything has just taken any sort of possibility for revenue out of it. A lot of artists' only revenue was live touring, and now that's gone. So it's really important to me to both as an artist, but also to support other artists in the ways that they have asked people to support them. So for a lot of artists, that's, signing up for their Patreon or their Bandcamp, a way that money goes directly to them. Some artists, they're like, I made 1,000 t-shirts last year and I really just need to sell these t-shirts because I'm not going on my tour, So I really try and find the artists I like, look up their feeds, pay attention to what they're saying on Twitter and support them in the way that they're asking, because there isn't a rubric for making music successfully anymore. There used to be kind of, but then the labels got too powerful and took advantage of people. And then the indie labels started bolstering the artists, but now those have kind of been gutted. So there's just a lot of, it's a fragmented industry. So my contribution to it is therapeutic for me. It's the one side of my life where I truly don't have to answer to anyone, especially now that I'm in control of the recording process and doing it all in my own home. I'm not on the hook for that, hourly rate. I'm still dying to go to like Sam Phillips in Memphis or one of those other legendary studios and do another studio album there. But it's especially this year, it's been a freeing place to make things and just put it out and, pay my collaborators and not really worry about whether it's profitable for me, because it doesn't really have to be, which is a luxury because I have a job on a TV show. So I'm always very aware that the people that I'm working with, they don't have TV shows. So when I'm pushing a record or asking people to consider supporting it or buying it, it's for those people. And I don't know. I don't know. This has been a weird year where I've just watched a lot of friends really struggle and really thrive.
Same.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. In addition to Powerful Ladies, I'm a business coach and advisor. And it's been really crazy because obviously it's been good for my business because people are like, holy shit, I can't do this by myself during this year in particular.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But it's also been really crazy of when pivoting 40 businesses at once is how am I supposed to sleep? Right. But I've been really proud of people getting really creative or finally feeling pushed to do the scary thing they weren't doing before, or to make that extra phone call for the extra sale or something. And but it has been this real crazy split of people who would show up to my free Q&As on Mondays, basically bawling their eyes out. I don't even know what to do, which we kicked off once COVID happened. And then people who are in the either Powerful Ladies Thrive community or a private client, some of them had their best month ever during COVID. And it's been so crazy to see, and this has shown up in many places this year, but such a divide of different realities for everyone.
Yeah.
It's been really hard to manage that. So I can imagine as well for you seeing it, you're having one of your probably best year ever from what's out. And then you're like, holy smokes, how is it so different for everybody else at the same time?
Yeah. Well, it truly is because, never have I been more aware of the privilege that being even tangentially related to Hollywood kind of affords you. I mean, I was able to go and finish a film that we started before COVID that shut down. And then I was able to go back and finish it because the studio was able to fund just massive, almost daily testing for hundreds and hundreds of people, the whole crew. We stayed isolated in a little bubble. And I didn't really realize what a big machine it kind of all is. Because I would just think oh, I got a part. Okay, now I'm doing my little thing. Oh, I got another little part. Now I'm doing a thing. Until I was reading about the NBA bubble. And I was like, oh, yeah, the NBA, that's a huge thing with these big athletes and they're getting all their tests. That makes sense, of course. And then I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. I mean, I'm not a famous NBA player, but there's as much money coursing through this side of things. I don't know. It just kind of surprised me that I'd never thought about it as that privileged of a position before, probably because, in this day and age, we're all on random streaming services. We're scrapping together jobs here and there. But it's wild that I get to keep working because my industry is so wealthy. And that's really the difference. And so, yeah, for music, there is except for the top 1% of artists, that doesn't exist.
Yeah. And even, I know we had Amy Rosoff Davis on, who does a lot of voiceover work. And so all her animation projects kept going. And with yours, I imagine you were able to keep going as well.
Yeah, for Star Trek Lower Decks, we had finished most of the principal actor recording. We had done a take or a session for every episode before COVID. And then what ended up happening was we needed to do ADR, and there were a few rewrites. So some of the ADR was massive. Like some of it was like 130 lines for an episode, which isn't really ADR at that point. At that point, it's just you're redoing the episode. So thankfully, because I have a studio here, I was able to use all my equipment. My producers were able to Skype over the phone with me and just kind of talk me through the session. And I sent the stuff off. So about half the stuff in the last 2 episodes of Lower Decks was all recorded right here in my little garage studio.
Yeah, who would have guessed that being a musician and a podcaster would allow you to keep doing your day job?
I know. It was like almost in 2019 when I was like buying all the equipment for this, I was writing it off as a business expense. And I feel like my accountant was kind of like, okay, you're like getting a lot of stuff. Are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I want to like have this nice studio. I want to do all these things. And now, it has very much paid off. I wouldn't have been able to do any of it.
Yeah. Jordan and I were just having that conversation. I did the same thing for our studio here, I think in February, like January. And it was just before everything happened. So we haven't even set it up yet because Jordan hasn't been able to come to like finish the setup. We're still using this amazing.
So you're doing everything
mic.
remote.
Yeah, because we were originally in the Earwolf Studios, which was working out. But I was like, we'll save you like the 2-hour plus drive. Let's like hook you up in your place. And then COVID hit. And we were like, well, we'll get this set up soon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And now that I'm back in my office space, it's all white. It's fresh. There's like literally my desk. And the light I have is literally a video light right now.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, blank canvas. It'll be ready for all of your fresh energy in 2021.
Yes. All the good vibes. One of the things that I've loved following you on Instagram over has been your love for the outdoors and encouraging more people to get outside. How did that come to be a part of your life, and what does being outside mean to you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I like to share with people things that I love. I mean, whatever, that's what social media is for. But I also like to share things that I think just have such a positive, profound effect on mental health. It's funny, when I was in Chicago, I used to be really into like nutrition and food and organic and blah, blah. And I still am interested in food stuff, but I realized what I was trying to do. I was trying to approximate a connection with nature, I think, because I grew up in California. I grew up on a ranch. I grew up going camping and hiking. We had horses. So I was always very connected to nature. And then I moved to Chicago for a solid 15 years. Loved it. I mean, I definitely have a duality of like rural to extreme city life. I lived in a bonkers timber loft for like $1,000 a month that was huge and in this insane part of town that everyone was jealous of. I know. I was like, I don't know how I found it either, but I'm never moving. I just have to like be quiet so they kind of forget we're in here. But I was, it's hard to get any access to nature there. And so I kind of like dove into like, organic food and things like that. And that sort of led me to, when my husband and I would travel, we would seek out like organic restaurants, plant-based restaurants, and then we'd always want to do a hike. So it was just kind of this food and being in nature and moving and being outdoors all kind of went together for me. And so then moving to back to California rather, I realized like, well, it's right outside my door. I can do this all the time. I was like sorely missing this before. And yeah, I think especially before this year, a lot of people thought of camping as like gross or uncomfortable or cold. And now I know, because I would ask friends to come with me all the time. I was like, how do I live in Los Angeles, which is 30 minutes sometimes from some of the most stunning campsites and hikes, And I can't get one person to come with me. I would be like texting my little, a show I did called $1 Billion Properties. We all still have a text thread. And I remember texting them all, this is like 4 years ago, for New Year's Eve. I had found this cliffside glamping campsite thing in Malibu. And I was like, oh, we can stay in these tents and then we can hike. And not one person even responded. They were all just like, that sounds not fun. So but it's interesting now because now I see more people, more of my friends that would have turned me down in 2016. Now they're out and about because that's all we could do all year.
Yeah. I feel really lucky that we have a pretty big group of outdoors people in our circle. And, we were already camping together on weekends before. And it's been great to kind of be able to quarantine pod together and just keep camping. And we did an amazing trip through Arizona and Utah over Labor Day. And
cool.
It was actually great because I was happy that they limited who could come in or who couldn't because you got the park almost to yourself.
I think we were in the same part of the world at the same time because I went to Grand Canyon right before Labor Day. And I've never been to the Grand Canyon before because I always avoided it because I was worried it was going to be a mob scene. And it was downright pleasant. There was nobody there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was, I felt so lucky. We had friends who got into Yosemite the weekend it opened and there was no one. And it was the wife's first time she'd ever been. And she's like, is it like this all the time? I'm like, no.
No. The front side of the Sierras is a madhouse. It is a Vegas club for the outdoors.
Yeah.
That's why my secret is Mammoth. I mean, it's not a secret. It's also crowded, but it is just because speaking as a Bay Area kid, I grew up there. You don't go to the backside of the Sierras. It's too long of a drive. So you go to the front side, you populate all of that and make that all crowded. But only the LA people ever come up to Mammoth. And so it just it thins the crowds a little bit.
Yeah. No, and even getting to like St. George, right? It's just far enough away where you're weeding out the crowd a little bit more too.
Yeah. I always say to get somewhere, to see something truly like spectacular on this earth, it either takes a ton of money or a ton of effort. And I'm effort all the way. I'm like, I will walk and walk and walk until we get to this lone tea house in the middle of the Alps that the only other way you can get there is by like $1 million helicopter.
So what have been some of your most amazing trips? Like, did you really go to this tea house in the Alps?
I did, yeah. We did the Tour de Mont Blanc, my husband and I, in 2014, which is a 10-day circumnavigation of Mont Blanc Mountain, and it is absolutely stunning. It can be crowded, though, because there's really only like 2.5 months of the year you can do it. So that was a little packed, but there's enough offshoot trails and things like, I mean, it's the Alps. You can't pass up the Alps. So I was willing to deal with some crowds. That was an incredible one. Another one that was pretty empty that I loved. And it's so weird because I realized the reason I loved it is because it felt very familiar was, I did a solo walk down the coast of Portugal, the western coast. It's called the Alentejo region. And it was a newish trail that they had just kind of marked out and, kind of assigned different guest houses along the way. But it was called the Rota Vicentina. And it's just this cliff, like coastal 5 or 6 day walk. And it looks like the coast of California a little bit, but imagine there's no houses and nothing there. So it was kind of interesting to like fly across the world to basically walk from like San Francisco to LA, but but it was really stunning and empty and the hostels were cheap and people were so friendly and safe. Yeah, those are big for me. And then I climbed up the mountains of Dewa in Japan in just the pouring rain. There are these 3 mountains, Dewa Sanzen, and we stayed again at a little tea house. I love a mountain and a tea house. Like, you got a mountain that leads to a tea house. I did the same thing in Banff. I'm in. I'm like done. I don't care what else happens.
Traveling is something that is just part of who I am, I feel at this point, and being on an adventure. Like we were talking in an earlier podcast about like, what's your favorite word? And I'm like, ooh, I think it's a tie between like believe and adventure. Because they're just, I don't know, it can apply to anything. Like every business opportunity is an adventure and actually traveling is.
Yeah.
But I think
my favorite word is global entry.
Ooh,
I just like the TSA pre-check. I love to travel and I just want that line to go faster.
So forgive me for where my head went with this word. So when I was living in Germany, we would have our corporate reviews and they called them internal reviews. And one of my friends was like, internal review? And I was like, I don't know. That's not what it means. Like there's a loss in translation. And then when you said global entry, my head went to the same place, which is horrible. Like
you were thinking like international sexcapades?
Yes. That's where I was like, global entry. Well, which global entry are you referring to? Yeah.
I wonder if the cheeky air administration people thought of that, if that's why they named it that.
I do hope that people have wise ass conversations about why they name things the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
It would make it better.
Purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, there's someone in TSA or whoever. I don't know who's in charge of global entry. Probably like Homeland Security. Does that sound right? That's crazy. Whoever that is, there's somebody there just snickering every time they see it written somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. And that's like in Germany, the bus system is called VAG, badge.
Cute.
Right. And it's like, who, no one's thinking about how this is going to be taken. Okay. That's fine.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you live in Germany?
I was there for 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah. It was amazing. I miss, we're from the East Coast. And then this year with COVID, I've been having such homesickness for New England and Europe and just missing, like usually get to see those places at least once a year in some capacity.
Yeah.
And like everyone else, like not traveling has been hard. And like my passport is like the first thing I'm saving in a fire. So
yeah,
it's been hard in that way. But I've been filling it instead with getting obsessed with tiny houses.
Oh, sure. That is the logical next step.
Mm-hmm.
That's the movement. You go from, you're missing Amsterdam or you're missing your little European cities to, well, maybe I could just put a tiny house in a trailer and move it to the middle of Colorado.
Yes. And then I can travel 99% more. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, trust me, my mom bought a little trailer right at the start of all this and renovated it herself. And she has just been gone like every weekend. She's like, meet me in Mammoth, I'm in Page, Arizona. I'm here, I'm there. And I taught her the term boondocking because I was like, especially early in the pandemic where things are still very scary, but especially early when we didn't understand how the virus spread as much and mask mandates weren't in place. I would tell her, I was like, I don't want you going to these like crowded RV parks. I don't want you going in for services places. Like you have to find a way to just like completely off-grid camp and stick to yourself. So I would send her YouTube videos about how to just boondock and how to find little spots that are, free campsites where you don't have to enter a campground. So now she's a maniac. Now she's like a van lifer.
You gave her a whole new life that she can have.
Yep, her and her little corgi dog.
Oh, so cute. No, our trip when we did Utah and Arizona, we got obsessed with Hip Camp.
Yeah, Hip Camp can be great because it's the Airbnb of camping.
Yeah, and we found so many cool private properties and got to meet cool people. And as you said, it was like I felt so much safer being on someone's land where they were like their house and we were the only ones camping. Versus being like in the park camping, because park camping is also not amazing. We found this incredible ranch that overlooks the west side of Zion up on the mountain.
Ooh.
And literally we had a full view into Zion, the park. And we're just on someone's ranch. They're like, mind the cows, camp wherever you want. I'm like, can we come back every weekend? This is incredible.
Yeah, I bet you could.
I'm sure.
I'm going to ask you for that listing after the recording too, because Zion was on my list earlier this year and we canceled it because we were, scared of COVID. But now I feel like things are spiking right now. So you want to be mindful, but I feel like there are safe ways to do that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Have you been to Zion before?
No, I just drove through it on a cross-country trip. And I remember being like, I'm in Zion. I have to stop and do something. And we had no time because we were trying to beat the sunset. And so I just went into a shop and bought like a giant crystal. I'm not even like a crystal person. Like, I think they're beautiful, but I don't know what they do or what people care about them. So I just bought this huge green. I don't know what it is, but I kept it with me in every house and apartment. I asked one friend, like, what do you do with this? And she was like, you need to put it in like your power center, like your career area of your home. And so I did that. But yeah, that's the only time I've been there.
It's honestly, it's my favorite national park I have ever been to. I can't wait for you to go.
Everyone says. I know. I've been to I think I've been to almost every other national park, and that's the one that's escaped me.
Yeah.
One day.
So did you ever expect that you would be so entrenched in space and it's in all capacities, animation space, comedy space. I was laughing at just like the whole listing for 20. You're like, okay, yep.
I did not. I had no idea. I was a Star Trek fan as a kid, and my parents are both big Trekkies, so it's always been something that we watched. And yeah, it was a cool franchise to get the audition for, because I was like, oh, I like this world, and I never thought that they would do a comedy. Because while Trek has always been very funny, there's always been elements of just so much humor. I mean, Spock, the original deadpan delivery, like it's practically vaudevillian. And yeah, just the interpersonal relationships on the Next Generation. And so while comedy has always been part of it, I never thought that I would be in that world, because they tend to hire like very trained classical actors, which I did for like 4 minutes back in Chicago and then gave up and veered towards comedy. So yeah, it's been definitely unexpected.
And it must remain fun.
Yes, definitely fun. I mean, Lower Decks is like the most fun job in the world. Now we've gotten to a point where we just go in, and I think I did 6 episodes in like 2.5 hours. We just do it so fast because they kind of just take my first draft version of everything, and then later in ADR we'll go back and redo stuff. But it's nice to just kind of knock out a ton of episodes at once.
See, Jordan, I'm not the only one who likes doing as much as you can in one day.
Oh my gosh, you're a marathoner.
Jordan says I'm going to kill her by the volume of which I like to podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's different when I find it's easier just to support Jordan here. It's easier when you're on mic, because that energy level of like, I'm talking and I'm engaging and I'm performing in a way is, that's, what do they call it? That's like a replenishing energy, or it can be for some people, because you're getting stuff back. Whereas Jordan's like, yes. Whereas when you're inert, or when you're like a more passive participant, you're listening and then you have to do stuff later. I know I always get so drained on like the meetings or anything I'm involved in where like I don't have anything to say or do. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah, Jordan's like, you are so boring and you're my sister and now you're really boring.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Why do I do this? Ugh. Yeah. When you look at your life's journey so far, how have the powerful people in your life been an impact on your path, and also you having as much fun as you can along the way?
I wonder, first of all, who the powerful people in my life are. That's my first question for myself. I don't know. My parents are both very different people from each other and from me, and none of them are artists. No one has ever been anything close to what I'm trying to do with my life. They've always been supportive. So they're supportive. We have good relationships. We're all friends. So that's been probably the best thing I could ask for to pursue such a thankless, weird, rejection-filled career, is just to have support, because I'm an only child. And so they could have very easily been like, you got to be a doctor or something. But they've always been pretty chill about it. In terms of like, and I guess they're powerful in their own ways. Sure. I mean, my mom is tough. I always think of my mom as very tough. And I think of my dad as very funny. I don't know that I've ever thought of the words powerful with them. They're just different.
Does it sound too aggressive?
It also can be, because I think when people get asked this question, it's a lot of like, what family members, where it also can be friends. Like, I think some of the first people I think of are friends or other people in the industry. So as much as...
Yeah, do you think of like peers or like people who are also trying to do what you're doing?
Yeah, I would say that. Is there anyone in your realm who you would think of who's been like is your significant other super like powerful to you, or friends, or...
Yeah, my husband Nate is powerful in a different way. He's powerful in the way that I don't think I could be, which is he's okay with taking a back seat and being supportive and being like, yeah, he's like the perfect support crew. Like, he wants to help people make things and do things. He's been really integral in the podcast website that Andrew and I are now launching since we left Earwolf, and he's like basically done all of the behind the scenes work on that. And that's something that I don't have skill or patience for. So there's a power in not wanting to just like be the yapping person all the time like I want to do. Yeah, I feel like his power comes from a desire to be helpful, and mine comes from like a desire to make things and do things.
Who are the women in your life that have, been the support system or been the one to like reach out and help you in ways that you didn't expect?
Probably my really close friend Poonam Patel. She's an actor and a writer. She's in Special on Netflix, and we've been friends since Chicago. So I was just trying to count the years there, and my brain short-circuited. I don't know how long. Maybe since like 2012. We've been really close, and she's just always like such a positive person, and it's not easy because she's been in comedy, and she's an Indian woman in comedy. She was the only Indian woman at the time working at Second City with me where we first met. And she's always maintained like a cheerful disposition. She's supportive of her friends. But what I've really witnessed in her lately is an incredible ability to draw boundaries with friends, especially because she is so giving. And that's something that I struggle with. And so I when I watch her do that, I want to be more like that, because I tend to be conflict averse in my friendships, but in business relationships, I don't mind them. So I'm trying to bring a little bit of more of that into my friendships, which sounds nuts because even saying it, I'm like, oh, I don't want this. But I do recognize that sometimes I get burnt out by friendships that are not what I need at the moment. And also, like, that's never her. Like, she and I were just talking the other day about how we never have tension or we never have issues with each other. And I think it's because, like, I watch the boundary drawing that she does with other people, and I kind of learn from that in how I relate to her, so that hopefully she never has to do that with me, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, there's, when you KonMari your life, it's more than just your things, right? It's like people and time, and, living with intention is really taking on all the different areas. And sometimes you got to KonMari a person, thank you and goodbye.
Yeah. And it is not easy for me. And it makes me feel like I've failed something, because I'm like, no, I should hang on to everybody. I want everyone at the party.
I'm very similar. I'm a keeper. If you connect to somebody and you like them, you're like, no, like, just come.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be tough, but, we're all getting too old to have people around us that make us feel bad,
Yeah, 100%. And I notice for me, it's also when I love people who meet you halfway. Like, whether there are people I'm hiring on my team, like, that's what I'm looking for. Like, are you going to meet me halfway, or am I going to have to pull or push you? Because that's not going to work. It's just, I think it comes back to that collaboration part, right? When you know that it doesn't need to be equal, the input, but if everyone's heart is equally contributing and whatever their contribution looks like, I think it changes things. And I think that's true for friendships too, right? Where if you're both in it for good reasons and from really supporting each other, not just take, then you feel that. You really feel the difference of it.
Yeah. I'm just remembering I think kind of a formative moment in my life when I first joined a band. My friend John Langford, he's this older artist. He's a Welsh punk rocker. He was from this band called Mekons, and he has a long solo career now. And he plays in Chicago. And so I had joined his solo band, and I was maybe like, I was young. This was like the first thing I did with him. So I was maybe like 24 or something. And I was just kind of like there to sing harmonies. I'd done some arrangements of like vocal arrangements for him and stuff and sung on his record. And so he brought me on a little mini tour, but he never gave me any like instruction or told me, and this is a guy with a 30-year-long career playing rock music and just beloved fans everywhere. And so after a show, we're all like drinking beers and he's like, great job. Like, got not a bad word to say for anyone, but I'm like such an actor. I want notes,
Yeah.
And so I went up to him and I was like, okay, John, well, I had a lot of fun, but I don't want to do anything on stage that you don't want me to do. So let me know. And this was after me like pestering him forever, like, tell me what to do, blah, blah. So finally I was like, I don't want to do something on stage that you don't want. And he goes in this like, he's got the most incredible accent in the world where everything he says just sounds like a Dylan Thomas poem. And he just goes, I don't have people on stage with me who do things that I wouldn't like. And I was like, oh, that is mind blowing, because what that means is you made the decision before you hired me that you liked what I do, you liked what I bring to the table. And so by telling me that, it's a really like smart way to say, you now have to have the confidence to do that. Because when you don't have the confidence, when you second guess or when you go, oh, please give me a note, oh, please help me, it puts the person who's brought you there, it gives them more work to do.
Yes.
Whereas if you can just trust that they've brought you on, that they like what you do, then you just do what you do. So that is very much how I try to lead everything. Like if I've brought you on, that means I like you and there's no second guessing, And it's not how everybody works. I mean, it's not how 24-year-old me worked. But yeah, I was just reminded of that because I do feel like that moment wrote a little blueprint for how I like to do things now.
No, I think it's a great story too, because it ties in, again, like leaning into your own confidence and power, right? One of my last corporate jobs, on my office door, I had a sign that said like, don't be an asshole. And it was controversial at first because I had that on the door, but people would come by all the time and ask things that they either knew the answer to or knew where to find it, or like, we're paying you, like, use your brain. Like, either you figure it out or I have to, I'm busy. And so it really changed everything and helped more people like just take things on. But you're so true. Like taking it on like it's your own and stepping into that confidence, like that's all anybody wants when they hire you, I think. like
yeah,
please do you.
Just please handle it. If you do something so wild that we have to tell you to stop, like, then we'll address it. But yeah, they don't want to hold your hand everywhere. And, it's funny because my husband had a long career in corporate America and advertising. And so when I would see him deal with things, or the little bit that I've been exposed, I can always tell when someone gets kind of brought into my orbit and they're not really a creative and they come more from the corporate world, because there is a little bit more like there's an unsure, there's a second guessing or like not wanting to step wrong. And a lot of times it's very kind and like they're trying to make space for me and for the other people involved, but I hate it. I don't want it. I don't want you to be awkward. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. Just come in with a plan. Yeah. If we don't like it, then we can talk about it. But yeah, sometimes it gets really, what's the word I'm looking for when people like don't want to fully step
like timid,
into something?
Timid?
Yeah, it comes across as timid.
And then, and I read timid as weak, which is not a good judgment on my side, but that's where my head goes.
I am the same way. We've been conditioned to do that, though. It's not our fault.
Thank you for giving me permission. Yeah. Or grace, at least. Yeah. No, it's true. And I feel so lucky that just who I am, which sounds very similar to your creative path of like just being entrepreneurial and just making things. I had someone ask like, what's your superpower? I'm like, I don't know, making something from nothing. Like, it seems like people can't do that, which is, makes my brain hurt how that's even an option not to. But there is, it's like, it really is amazing to me how many people have all these incredible ideas and they want to do these things. And what about this? And it's not even a doubt. It's just not knowing how to even start. And I'm like, well, today there's no excuse. You just Google. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Or you just, but pre-COVID, I would just like take someone to lunch and just write down every question I could possibly think of and just pepper them. If you pepper someone with enough flattery, you can also ask them enough questions that they won't get too annoyed with you and usually buy them a meal. But you can do it over Zoom. Send them a Postmates or something.
Yes. Yeah. They now have DoorDash gift cards. Yep.
There we go.
No, I think it's true. So as you look into 2021, what are you excited about or looking forward to professionally and personally?
Ooh, I mean, personally, I want to get on a fucking plane. I want to go back to Tokyo. My ramen spot has not closed down. They're doing fine. I got to get there when they reopen the doors. Yeah, I got to get back to Iceland. Like personally, it's all travel. I'm obsessed. I miss it so much. I was going to go to Patagonia this January.
I was supposed to go in December. We were going to go for the Eclipse Festival.
Oh my God. I know. And me and my friend Poonam, who I mentioned, she's been trying to take me back to India since we've met. And I kept being like, I never had the money, And now I'm like, now not only do I have financial stability, but I also have like the most seasoned traveler's stomach. Like I just spent so long traveling in random places that I'm like, let's go to India and let's eat fucking everything. So travel is definitely on the personal front. On the professional side, I was kind of a bat out of hell this year. I mean, in addition to the projects you so kindly mentioned that I was lucky enough to be cast in, of course, it wasn't enough for me and I had to make my own things. And so I made my album. It's called Material Flats. My longtime musical collaborator and I, Bethany Thomas, we recorded everything in my home. I learned to engineer it myself. I was on YouTube looking at tutorials for like how to mic drums. Shout out to the Glenn Johns method. I was literally like, there was no other way to do it. It wasn't possible to, as you know, bring an engineer into your home. And I had the equipment technically, I just didn't have the skill. So I was like, well, I got to make something out of nothing, like you said. So we made an 8-track album and it's big and it's loud and it's entirely ours. And we love that so much. So that's on Bandcamp and I'm excited to keep selling more vinyl of that because we designed really cool vinyl and to hopefully tour after it once touring is legal. And then our podcast endeavor, we're launching a site. It's called suboptimalpods.com. And it's basically like a co-op of podcasts and bundled content that listeners can just subscribe to. And that's where you'll find our podcast, Yo, Is This Racist? And then a bunch of other little one-off things I want to try. Yeah, I've been sort of looking for a place to try little mini ideas that I didn't want to wait to get the approval of a network for. And also bring in some of my friends. I have such funny, incredible friends with incredible points of view who I worked with in theater in Chicago, who maybe don't have a Hollywood career or following out here, but are incredible artists and creators and comedy people that I think people should know. So yeah, looking forward to exposing folks to them.
Okay. We ask everyone on the Powerful Ladies podcast where you rank yourself as a powerful lady. 0 being average everyday human and 10 being the most powerful lady that you can imagine. Where would you rank yourself today? And how would you rank yourself on an average day?
Today, I tried to take it easy. So I would say today, I'm always operating at a pretty powerful level. So I'd say I'm a 7. In general, I think I'm an 8 because like, I'm not, I'm not AOC. I'm not gonna, I'm not Dolly Parton. I'm not gonna fund the COVID vaccine. But I can really get shit done within my lane and within my world. I have no doubt that I can get shit done. So yeah, I think I've topped out at what my skills amount to. I think that makes me about an 8.
And how cool is it that you know you can get shit done?
Hey, there's no other choice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Waiting around for the phone to ring, that's a hell of a life. And I mean, that's what actors do. That's what I did for so long and still do to an extent, but it can't be my whole life. I'll go nuts.
Yeah, and it's more fun, right? Creating things is so much fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more fulfilling. I mean, I definitely make the least amount of money podcasting and doing music and get the most fulfillment out of it.
Yes. Just like everything else, it's all about the diversification, right? So you can balance it out. Time to money does 100%. Not need to be 1-to-1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially when you're, going in to record for 2.5 hours for 6 episodes, right? Like you're like, wait,
I know.
How much money was that for 2.5 hours? How do I get that every 2.5 hours?
Yeah. And of course I feel like a badass after that 2.5 hours, but watch, in April, they're going to call me and be like, okay, we have to redo all of those. And I'll be like, all right, makes sense. We're a little fast and loose with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the Powerful Ladies podcast. Thank you for being a yes. Thank you for being so great to Jordan. And I just think it's so great what you're up to. I can't wait to share with everyone here your links to your album and your shows and everything else that you're doing. And I can't wait to hear what you think of Zion after you get to go.
I know, with your super secret in. I'm so excited.
Yes. And of course, before we let you go, if you'd like to share any handles or websites that you want to drive people to, that would be great.
Yeah. So I talked about my album. That's at tawnyandbethany.com. I also talked about our new podcast platform, Suboptimal Pods. But the easiest thing is probably if you go to my Instagram or my Twitter. They're both at Tawny Newman, TrondyNewman. There's a link to all of those in my bio. So if you just go to Tawny Newman, you can find a link to whatever you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tawny's awesome. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Tawny Newman and get her album, watch her shows, subscribe to her podcast, get outside, and get your nature on. You can find all the links to connect with her and more in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Powerful Ladies podcast. There are so many ways you can get involved and get supported with fellow powerful ladies. First, subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. Join the Powerful Ladies Thrive Collective. This is the place where powerful ladies connect, level up, and learn how to thrive in business and life. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, and of course, visit our website, thepowerfulladies.com. I'd like to thank our producer, composer, and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. Without her, this wouldn't be possible. You can follow her on Instagram at Jordan K. Duffy. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.